Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Higher Grounds podcast. This is your morning minute meditation for this morning. I'd like to call your attention to the Gospel of Luke and chapter number 17. I'm interested in verse 11 down through verse number 19. We're not going to read those passages for you this morning, but I trust that you take the time to read those passages today. But in those few verses of Scripture, Jesus is going to Jerusalem. And, of course, he's on his final trip to Jerusalem where he's going to lay down his life there on Calvary and pay man's sin debt. But something very interesting happens in them verses. He meets 10 leprous men. And, of course, he cleanses all 10 of those men, but only one of them are converted. And this is the one that come back to give him praise and glory and glorify God for what he had done in his heart and his life. But I want you to think about this. When Jesus goes through the midst of Samaria and Galilee, and he comes into a certain village there where he's met by those 10 leprous men. Verse 13, the Bible said that they've cried out, said, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And so I want to use these few verses this morning to give you a thought on when the Master ministers mercy. Now, there's about three things I want you to look at in this verse this morning. You'll notice that the Bible said that Jesus came into a certain village, and as he's going to Jerusalem, he takes an unexpected or unexplained detour. That's not the first time Jesus does that when he ministers mercy. I want you to think about this. First point is when the Master ministers mercy is when he seeks the sinner. You're familiar with John chapter 4, the Samaritan woman that's at the well. Jesus made that statement, must needs go through Samaria. So Jesus is on a trip. He's seeking sinners. And according to Luke's gospel, that's the whole purpose of his mission as the Messiah. And his ministry was to seek and to save that which was lost. And so he ministers mercy when he seeks the sinner. Number two, he ministers mercy when he sees and speaks to the sinner. In the text, we find that those 10 men are speaking to Jesus, and Jesus is speaking to those men because Jesus gave them their full attention. And so he ministers mercy when he seeks the sinner. He ministers mercy when he sees and speaks to the sinner. But thirdly and finally, the Master ministers mercy when he saves the sinner. As those 10 men are following the command that the Lord gave them to go see the priest, they all notice that they're cleansed. 9 of them continue their journey to see the priest, but there's one man that comes back to the Lord to give him thanks. And when he glorifies God and he falls at his feet on his face, Jesus made this statement. He said, "Thy faith has made thee whole." And so Jesus is the Master who ministers mercy in the text by seeking the sinner, by seeing and speaking to the sinner, but thirdly and finally, by saving the sinner.